future of humanity, could we step outside those dotted lines once a day? Could we do it twice or 3 times a day? I am going to propose one profound way that we can not only foster our growth mindset, but also undergo the transformative change required of us to literally save this planet. And that is to rethink what we put on our plates 3 times a day, specifically in regard to animal products. And I'd like to make this case by applying skills that we teach our students and educational mantras that we hear all the time to the context of our relationship with food and nature. Now, for the same reasons that we tell our kids to use evidence and reasoning, we cannot let willful ignorance override informed decision-making. The United Nations stated in the most comprehensive analysis of farming to date that to avoid the worst effects of climate change, the world must shift to a plant-based diet. And this study was based on 40,000 farms in 119 countries. And the scientific conclusion was that our diet is actually the single biggest way that we can reduce our impact on the earth. And this is not a political soundbite or passionate plea from animal activists, but this is our factual reality, proven over and over again by thousands of experts around the world. So what will happen to humanity if we resist growth and we say instead, we've always done it this way? The most dangerous phrase in our language, one that at some point in our careers we've all probably both desperately clung to and also opposed. But the we've always done it this way mentality in our professional world, it stunts our growth as teachers to best reach our students. And it's also the most dangerous phrase in regard to how we think about our food. Because the way we've always done things is no longer working. And let's also consider the role that tradition plays in regard to our food. If you take an idea and you put that idea into society long enough, over time, it becomes a societal norm. And if you keep fueling that societal norm, over time it becomes part of society's culture. And when you pass culture from generation to generation, it becomes tradition. But does the length at which something has been done or has been regarded as normal mean that it is the best way to do something, or the only way to do something, or the right thing to do? When it comes to our appetite for animal products, clinging to reasons of tradition and convenience are jeopardizing the future for our kids and for us. This is within our lifetime. And so, with that being said, we need to challenge these ideas and be more open-minded. We want our students to be critical of this world and everything in it. We want our students to focus less on finding the right answers and more on asking the right questions. We get frustrated when our students just Google the answer or copy someone's homework because it's more convenient, because we know that no real growth is happening that way because their mindset's not being challenged. So we also want our students to question answers as much as they answer questions. We want them to be critical of this world, and the planet needs us to model these critical thinking skills just as much. For example, if eating animals is natural and healthy, why is a plant-based diet the only diet that can reverse the #1 killer in our country, which is heart disease? If we can get every single nutrient we need without harming an animal, why do we give our dollars to an industry that is the leading cause of species extinction, ocean dead zones, water pollution, and habitat destruction? Why do we continue to clear 1 to 2 acres of rainforest every second for animal agriculture when we need those trees to combat climate change? Why do world leaders ignore the fact that animals raised for food account for 51% of annual worldwide greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than all forms of transportation combined? Is it efficient that 1/3 of the Earth's freshwater consumption and 45% of the Earth's total land is used for raising animals to eat? Is it efficient that 1,000 gallons of water are needed to produce 1 gallon of milk, or 2,500 gallons are are needed to produce just 1 pound of beef? Is it efficient that 1.5 acres of land can produce 375 pounds of meat when we could use the same amount of land to create 37,000 pounds of vegetables? Why are we currently growing enough food to feed 10 billion people, yet we can't end world hunger? Is it acceptable that 82% of starving children live in countries where food is fed to animals and animals are eaten by Western countries? Since the US alone could feed 800 million people with the grain that we feed to livestock, why are we choosing reasons of convenience, habit, tradition, and taste over other survival? Hypothetically speaking, if the entire world gave up meat and dairy, global farmland could be reduced by 75%, which is an area equivalent to the size of our country, China, the European Union, and Australia combined, and we could still feed the world on that. Think about it. Would inefficiencies of this caliber ever be tolerated in our professional setting? And given that there have been 2,500 studies proving that animals are sentient and that they have personalities and that they have emotions and experience pain, do animals deserve our moral consideration? Back in August, on the opening day of the school year, one of the guest speakers, Dan Law, was sharing with us his opinion on the skills that students need now more than ever, and we actually heard this again today. And one of those skills is empathy. And we keep hearing this more and more in the educational world, and I think we would probably all agree that, yes, the world could always use more empathy. But what about for animals? Do animals who are also some of the most vulnerable beings on this earth deserve our moral consideration? I think we would also agree that the answer is yes, which is why we don't even need to be an animal lover to feel compelled to help the baby bird on the side of the road, or to feel outraged whenever we hear about abuse done to dogs or cats. But the truth is, in the ways that matter, all animals are the same, including us, human animals. We are all sentient. We all want to be guarded against physical and emotional harm, and we all want to live. Imagine a world where children are taught to give the same moral consideration to a chicken as they do their dog at home. How might that translate to the way that they view people who are different from them? There's a famous Einstein quote that we've probably all heard in regard to the way we look at our students and their varying intellectual abilities. And that is the quote, "If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." And though we more traditionally think about this quote in regard to our students, it's about animals, so let's consider it that way for a moment. Should a living being's intelligence dictate how we treat them? Yes, humans are different from animals, and we are actually superior to them in our intellectual abilities. But animals have abilities that we do not, and that we could never have. And their lives have value to them, whether or not we choose to see things from their perspective. And technically, if we decide which animals we should be eating using intelligence as our moral baseline, then we should be eating our dogs instead of pigs. Because what makes humans superior is our moral agency and our amazing capacity to use logic and reason, and the ability to exercise empathy by challenging long-standing ideas. And this gives us the responsibility to do better, rather than the right to take advantage or exploit some of the most gentle beings on this earth. Ironically, our existence depends on some of the tiniest creatures on this earth. And if humans were swept off the earth tomorrow, the natural world would be restored. We are the only species who kills and destroys for reasons that are unnecessary. In our professional world, we are reminded all the time that we're currently educating kids for jobs that do not yet exist. But we are currently educating students for a world that won't exist if we do not embrace change in our daily lives. Another phrase that teachers have been told all the time is to remember your why. And our collective why, regardless of what we teach, is to leave this world in a better place. Ironically, nothing we prepare students for right now will matter if there's no sustainable planet on which to live. And we're not waiting for our students to grow up and become the people who find these solutions, because the solutions are already out there. They're just waiting for our action. It can definitely be difficult to feel a sense of urgency about these things because the horrors that are committed against animals happen behind closed doors. And the most catastrophic effects of climate change aren't happening in our small world of South Fayette. But we need to start treating these issues in the exact same way that we do regarding the invisible force and influence that we have on the kids who sit in our class every single day. And that is with intentional care and the hope that we are influencing them for the better. Maybe you're thinking, I'm just one person, so what kind of difference can I actually make in the face of these global issues? But we are teachers because we believe in the power of one. We don't necessarily reach every kid who sits in our class either, but sometimes isn't one enough? And is there any other issue in our lives where we would say, I can't do everything, so I'm just going to do nothing? Our choices absolutely do matter. And this industry, animal agriculture, is based on supply and demand. And the best part is that one person in one day, by eating a plant-based diet, can save 1,100 gallons of water, 45 pounds of grain, 30 square feet of forested land, 20 pounds carbon dioxide equivalent, and one animal's life every day. If we don't genuinely believe that one person can drive this kind of change, how do we expect our students to? What our small world, big future holds all depends on what we do right now, every single day. And I promise you, as someone who loves food more than anything in the world, you don't have to sacrifice anything by eating a plant-based diet. But we do sacrifice everything by continuing on business as usual. All we really need to do is just practice the same flexibility that's so inherent to us as teachers and just think about food differently. And imagine the potential for growth in other facets of our lives if we can challenge ourselves to think differently about something that is so sacred and emotional to us as food. Every single day is an opportunity for us to learn something new and to grow in ways that are surprising to ourselves. So let's continue to be the kind kid, but let's extend that kindness to every kind and to the future and to humanity. When we make choices in our diets that reflect kindness to all animals, I think it's amazing that kindness comes back to us in the form of our own health and the health of this planet. Coincidentally, monarch butterflies are one of the million species whose existence is currently threatened by extinction. Let's not just save the butterfly through our actions, but let's honor her spirit by transforming. And remember that change does not mean giving everything up. It means gaining back everything that matters. Thank you.